Happy holidays, everybody! My name is Ben and welcome to the very first episode of the 12 Sprues of Kitmas. That's right, guys, we're going to go ahead and dive on in today. We're going to draw day number 1. We're going to see what kit we have to build, and we're going to go from there. Now, if you're just new here, this series that I'm doing is really just kind of for fun. It's not meant as any sort of quintessential build guide on any of these aircraft. It's just going to be for fun. So we're going to start here with the very first day. We're going to make a little mark here. We're going to push our hand through. We're going to find out what kit we have in store for us for this very first episode. Then we're going to build it. And we're going to focus on having fun, trying some new techniques, and just enjoying the entire process. But we're going to kind of build quickly because I want to see if I can't build 12 model kits within 12 different episodes. So that's going to be fun. Anyway, let's go ahead and push our hand in here, fish around a little bit. Oh, I think I got it. Let's pull this out. And drum roll, please. Nice. Looks like the 1/72nd scale Ki-61 Heian or Tony. So let's go and open it up here and see what we have. Now this is a Hasegawa kit, and if I have learned anything about Hasegawa kits is that typically they fit together very, very well. So I have high hopes that this thing is going to go together beautifully. The parts look nice, they're very finely recessed panel lines, everything looks beautiful. So I think this is going to be a really good experience. Now, in terms of markings and all that, it looks like we have 2 different paint schemes that we can do. We have, looks like one in an overall, like an olive color with a gray undersurface, and we have a natural metal color. I really like the natural metal color. That's got a very interesting kind of squiggle pattern, and that's going to need to be airbrushed, so that might be something we can do. Anyway, guys, let's go ahead and dive right on in. We're going to start building up this aircraft, see what we can do, scratch build some stuff. We're just going to have some fun, push forward, and get this thing rolling. All right, everybody, we are back, and I've been doing quite a bit of work here on the cockpit. Probably spending too much time on this, but I'm having fun, and that's what this whole series is really about. So I've actually added a couple of pieces here and there, and I added a bunch of spare parts that I modified, and you may have seen some of that in the time lapse. Most of the kits that I typically build are 1/48 scale, so I had to cut down, sand down, and shave off certain areas of other parts so that I would get them to fit here, and they look about right for 1/72. I also took the liberty of drilling a few holes in the back right behind the pilot. That seems to be something that the KS61s had, so that's awesome. I added in some seat belts using some Tamiya tape and some aluminum foil, and honestly, yeah, this is all right. This is looking pretty decent. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to push forward, and I want to go ahead and button up the fuselage, and then we're going to start sanding things down, and we're going to get this looking as clean as possible. Now, my idea is to go ahead and do the natural metal finish, so I have to make sure that all of these seams are very, very smooth. Now, since this is 1/72 scale, we really don't have a full cockpit. We actually only have parts and pieces that give us an impression of having a cockpit. Here on the front instrument panel, we're going to go ahead and cut out the decal. We're going to use that, basically apply it down to the instrument panel, which honestly doesn't have much detail whatsoever in it. And then we're going to go ahead and close up the cockpit. I think we'll be okay. So typical decal process, nothing too fancy there. We're going to just dip it in some water, let that go ahead and lift off the backing, and then we're going to apply it down to where it needs to go. So should be pretty simple, and I think you're not really going to see much because the canopy is closed, so it's all good. Now moving over to the fuselage, let's go ahead and close up both halves, and everything fits really, really well. I like how this is looking so far. A couple of inconsistencies though. The chair isn't really correct. Instrument panel has no details whatsoever, but this kit is coming together so far. I've done quite a bit of work there in the cockpit. Probably won't do that for every single kit, but that's okay. We're still going to go ahead and do a little bit here and there just to kind of spice things up a bit. And this is probably as far as I want to go ahead and take this. Like I said, I did do a little bit of drilling in the back of the canopy, right behind the pilot's seat. I did a little bit of scratch building with some parts and pieces. There's not a lot of detail on the inside of the cockpit, but again, this is 1/72 scale. This will probably be a bit more par for the course. I don't think we're going to get a lot of crazy detail in some of these kits. It's just going to be for fun. And like I said, every single kit, we're going to try to change things up a little bit. Moving right along, everybody, let's go ahead and put together the wings and the rear tail. Being this is a Hasegawa kit, I have high hopes that there's not going to be really many seam lines or issues with the wing root. So let's go ahead and dive right on in. Fingers crossed we can push this through, get this thing looking like an airplane. Alright everybody, we are back and we have a completed, basically assembled KS61. There's a little bit of issue here with the wing root, not that crazy to be honest, but we're going to use a little bit of Mr. Surfacer 500 and I'm going to take a little bit of acetone and we're just going to wipe down that putty, make sure that we have everything nicely filled in. Both sides that we can go ahead and fill in just a little bit. I don't want to eliminate the seam, I just want to minimize it because typically there is some form of seam right there. This way, you're not eliminating it, you're just minimizing it so you can still have an impression of something being there, there, but you don't have to worry too much about sanding and doing a bunch of crazy alterations and making sure that we rescribe panel lines. A little bit of Mr. Surfacer, some acetone, and we're ready to go ahead and move over to the next area. Now I've actually decided that I'm going to do a little bit of scratch building here for the exterior. And the KS61 has this cooler that hangs down right in the middle of the fuselage. And there's typically a little flap in the very back of that opens and closes to allow more or less airflow through. You see the same thing on the G55. In fact, if I remember correctly, the KS61 was originally built off of a licensed DB601 engine that actually powered the Messerschmitt. So there's a lot of similarities between this, the 202 and 205 for the Italian Air Force, and then the Messerschmitt 109. So that's interesting. But of course, what we have here in the kit is all one piece, way too thick, way out of scale, and I want to go ahead and open it up. So I went ahead and I cut out that little flap, and we're going to make one out of plasticard. Very simple process here, guys. We're just going to measure it out. We're going to cut down a piece of plastic and see if we can just fit it up in there, glue it, and then add some sides. This looks about right. I'm happy with the fit here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue this down, and I'm going to have it open just slightly. Now there's no detail really on the inside, so it's not like I'm trying to show off a bunch of detail. I just want it to be a little bit more interesting than having it so flat and thick. Now I'm going to take some other plasticard here. We're going to build some sidewalls for this. Now I'm pretty sure there was some form of actuator in there as well, but that's too much for this scale. I'm just going to have fun with this and just give the impression of there being something else. I think the imagination should fill in the rest. Just with a little bit of glue, we are ready to go ahead and install this into the back of the aircraft. This way, it looks a little bit more in scale, and I can pose it open to give the impression of some action. So that is perfect. A little bit of extra thin Tamiya. Go ahead and adjust that, make sure it tacks up, and then we'll add our sides. Make sure that looks decent. Now the sidewalls are just simply pieces of styrene that are cut at angles. This way we have a kind of a tapering effect. We can have the very back of that little wedge and then the thinner part towards the very front of that. And then we'll glue those down so it has some sidewalls. Super simple, nothing too crazy there. Let's go ahead and get that done. I think it's going to add a lot of character. Now moving right along, everybody, we have an aircraft that's pretty much ready for priming. I've done a little bit of work here off camera and taken care of some of the seam lines, and there's a couple that still need to be worked on, but I think we can go ahead and push forward, and I'm going to go ahead and prime the entire aircraft basically twice. The first one's going to be just in an overall white primer, and the second one is going to be in the all-clad gloss black primer. And hopefully we're going to go ahead and be able to achieve a very cool looking metal finish. Now again, I am planning on going ahead and basically ruining that paint job by airbrushing squiggly lines all over it, but I think that's going to be okay, and besides I've never done it, so we can try it. Anyway, let's go ahead and cue up that time lapse and get that primer all set up, and go ahead and get our natural metal finish all applied. Let's do it, guys. Now we have our KS61 more or less in our metal color. We've got the yellow identification markings right on the front of the wings. We've got that blue-black cowl. I think it looks pretty cool. Went ahead and I airbrushed the ailerons in a fabric gray color. Most of these surfaces were fabric covered, so I wanted to go ahead and make that look a little bit different from the rest of the aircraft. Now, of course, we're going to have to go ahead and work a little bit here with some of the detail parts, like the wheels and whatnot. We're going to go ahead and build this with landing gears deployed. I'm going to have this sitting in my display case. Now, some aircraft I might actually do as tree ornaments like I did last year. Others I might do as in-flight models, for like my desk at work or home office here. So it just depends on what I feel like doing. But this one is going to go ahead and have landing gears deployed. So that means we have to go ahead and do a little bit of painting here on the wheels and make sure they look okay. I could add brake cables and all that, but I don't really want to fool with that. So we're going to go ahead and just get these wheels done, get them all painted up, and then we can start assembling everything. And here we go. The KS61 is more or less all assembled, and I think it looks pretty decent. I really like how the natural metal has turned out. I've got that red-brown color for the propeller. We've got the yellow on the wings, also yellow and white on the very tip of the nose. I think it looks cool. So I think what we're going to do now is I need to apply some Future. So we're going to go ahead and overcoat everything with Future, and then we're going to get everything decaled and finalized. Alright everybody, we are back and I have my KI61 all decaled and I think it looks pretty awesome. Now I've been doing a little bit of practicing here off camera trying to get that squiggle pattern down with my airbrush. I'm not very good at it, but I want to try it anyway. I got my references right here that show a little bit of the pattern, and so I'm probably going to combine a couple of different techniques, and I'm just going to try to paint as close to that kind of squiggly pattern as possible. I know a lot of KI61s had a really cool looking camo scheme, and I'm going to try to replicate that as close as I can, but I don't know guys, I'm a little bit concerned. There's a part of me that just kind of want to leave it natural metal and not fool with this and not paint any sort of green over top of it. But this is all about having fun, right? 12 sprues. We're going to try it and see what happens. Otherwise, if I just left it as is, it actually looks pretty cool. I like how the metal is turned out. Everything is nice and smooth, and it does still have that kind of shimmer that the metal finish had before I went ahead and overcoated it with Future. It did give a very nice gloss coat for our decals, and the decals went on flawlessly. There are some very tiny little stencils that you're really not going to be able to see, but I put them on anyway. I think for future episodes, I might leave out those that you really can't see. But we're going to go ahead and pull out some Tamiya. We're going to go with the Imperial Japanese Army green, and we're going to attempt to go ahead and get that squiggle pattern all over the aircraft, and then we're going to weather. So fingers crossed, this turns out. Okay everybody, so we are back and I have finished my KI61 and I have to say it's a little bit mixed for me. We'll go ahead and show you what we come up with here. Now this is a great little kit. If you like 1/72nd scale aircraft and you like Japanese aircraft, this is a really fun little build. Goes together well. Yeah, it's a little bit shy on some parts and all that. We did some scratch building, but it's okay. It still looks like a KI61, which is a pretty neat looking airplane. Now in terms of my paint job, I did do that squiggle pattern all over the wings, and I did a little bit more of a blotchy squiggle pattern on the sides of the fuselage. I'm not exactly 100% happy with it, but I really wanted to try to capture that squiggle camo. I think it's a good stepping off point. It's just, I don't know. I really should have kept it natural metal. Give you a little close up here, you can see that, yeah, I didn't have my paint as finely sprayed as possible. So I do have a little bit of overspray. I think a little bit too much overspray in certain areas. I really wish that I had done something a bit different, and you know what? Live and learn, right? This is my very first time ever trying any sort of complicated camo like that. And of course I had to try it in 1/72nd scale. So that might have been a little bit more of a bit of an overreach for me. I still had fun with it. And I did learn quite a bit about how to paint this type of camouflage. I'm not sure if I would do it again in 1/72nd. I might do it in 1/48 scale, but overall, this kit has been a lot of fun. Now I did do a little bit of scratch building. We did have to repair the pitot tube here on the side. That was actually just scratch built. And of course we did add in the scratch built details here just so we'd have that little door that opens up. I like it. I think it really adds a little bit of character to the aircraft. I did add some easy line as well for the aerial, and well, I think I'm going to call it a day. But anyway guys, we are done with the very first entry into the 12 sprues of Kitmas. This was the 1/72nd scale KI61 by Hasegawa. Even though I don't really like the paint job, I think the kit is a very fun little kit. It's a real quick build. Anyway, guys, that's all for the very first day. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back next episode for day number 2, where we'll go ahead and draw the next kit and see what's in store for us. Until then, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Happy holidays to each and every one of you. And we'll see you back here on day number 2 for the 12 Sprues of Kitmas. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.